You look at this Brazil starting 11, how many of those Mexico players get in there? None.
Yeah, none of them do. But I'll tell you what, for 20 minutes, I'm sitting watching this going, Brazil didn't know what to do. Yeah, Mexico didn't let them out. They had to kick it long. I mean, they totally disrupted Brazil. But when you've got a team that's as talented and as a team they are, then eventually over a period of time, you see what's going to happen. Mexico are going to lose their legs because they put a lot into that first half. And then the talent takes over. So if I'm a Mexico player or fan, I'm happy with what we've done at this World Cup.
They didn't go out with a whimper, did they? I thought they went out fighting. And when you look at the substitutions that Brazil put on and the substitutions that Mexico put on, they're on a different level. Firmino, Fernandinho, they're on a different level than the substitutes that Mexico put on. So sometimes you just have to take it on the chin. As long as they went down fighting and trying and giving it their all, sometimes you just have to say we were beaten by the better side.
Yeah. Sebi, are you proud?
You know, the point of this for Mexico is to get to the fifth game.
I can't believe you've actually had to think about that. You've actually had to think about that, Seb, really?
He doesn't want to say it.
You know what, Stevie? You're the Mexico fan. Speak for me, please.
I'll tell you what, I was not a Mexico fan until this World Cup. I'll tell you what, every single time they played, I was looking forward to it. They showed us against Germany that regardless of who you are, we're going to try and play our game, and that's what they've done. They did it against Germany. They tried to do it against Brazil, but they just came up against a side that are too good. So, my God, you should be proud of this team.
I think this is the situation, Steve, and for the rest of the guys in Mexico. They're just tired of just being proud with the effort, just proud with the fourth game. They're ready for the fifth game. This is the talk, this is the debate in all of Mexico right now. Why can't they get to the fifth game?
It's Brazil.
Well, when you look at it,
It's Brazil. It's the team that is favored. You haven't just lost.
It didn't have to be Brazil.
Can I finish? When you look at the lineups, when you look at the players, Brazil has some of the best players in the best leagues on the best teams. Mexico doesn't have players in top leagues and top teams or any players in top leagues that are even playing. That is the difference. It is the quality. I am agreeing with you.
It didn't have to be Brazil. That's the point. You want to talk about pride? How about talking about stubbornness? How about talking about the fact that against Sweden, when all you needed was a draw, they decided to go at Sweden and open themselves up and lose 3-0.
What I would say,
that's where you win the group. That's where you avoid Brazil.
Boys, this is Macca. Excuse me a second. What I would say is that since 2010, I have been at every tournament watching England. They have been woeful. I mean, woeful. What I would take out of this, following Mexico, is that I think they've done themselves proud in the way they've approached the games, the way they've tried to fight, tried to play. Admittedly, the Sweden game was disappointing, but at least you can. I feel that Mexico can leave this tournament with the heads held high. Every time I've left a tournament watching England as a supporter and as a fan over the last 8 years, I've left trying to hide. I've been that embarrassed about them. So I think
give it 24 hours.
I think what we're trying to say is that from a neutral, we think that they've done really, really well.
Oh, no doubt. From a neutral standpoint, yes. But I think we're both in agreement. Back in Mexico, everybody sees this as a tremendous failure.
And no offense, guys, I think maybe the neutrals have a lower perception of what the Mexican player is, and maybe I, as a fan, have a higher perception of what it is. But I think it's capable of once in 7 tries winning a knockout game and getting through to the quarterfinals. I mean, that's where the angst comes from for me. It's not that this is the first round of 16 loss.
Always get out of that group,
it's the 7th straight round of 16 loss, man.
Seb, I understand, but you're not an idiot. You know that this Brazil team is extremely good, and I know you could have beaten Sweden, but you didn't. You didn't beat Sweden, you didn't get a result, so therefore you've got knocked out by the best team in the tournament, the favourites to go on and win the World Cup.
Correct. Brazil is the favourites.
So why can you take no solace from that?
Understood. Because this is whatever, 7 times 4, 28 years of pent-up frustration. And understand that, to me, these issues, this glass ceiling is not a fault, a lack of quality in the players. That's their fault. This is a federation issue. Clubs in Mexico don't want to sell their players to Europe because they're going to make more money on them here. They don't want to play in tournaments like Copa America. They don't want to play in Libertadores because they want to take the paychecks from playing in tournaments like Gold Cup in the United States. It's money in Mexico, and that's why, and you can speak to this more, there's a ceiling on Mexican soccer. It's not because of the player, the quality of the player, what the player is capable of. It's because of the guys who run the federation and the guys that run the clubs.
Yeah, it's much deeply rooted problems than what you just let on by seeing this tournament. And more importantly, this is the golden generation. This is the last chance probably in a long time you're going to have a real crack at doing it in the World Cup of Mexico.
Guys, listen, quick one. I didn't hear any of you two talking about deep-rooted problems when Mexico beat Germany.
You don't listen to our podcast,
do you
Craig.
Follow us on social media? You guys only give us 3 minutes an episode. There's only so much we can talk about.
Do you listen to 2 on 3?
No, I'm too busy for podcast, boys.
It is just shameful that so much time can be lost over one player. That is a lesson for even children who play. This should be a game of men and not so much clowning around.
I'm sorry, I can't disagree with a word of it. I'm actually getting sick and I'm actually beginning to feel embarrassed for Neymar now. Surely some of his teammates have to say to him, look, you need to calm this down a little bit, because eventually somebody's going to get hurt. I mean, you saw in this game that the Mexicans were running around. Number one, they were trying to kick him, but one of his teammates is going to get it because of his antics. It's embarrassing, and if he wants to be the man, he needs to pack this.
By the way,
should it have been a red card, though?
Yes.
Right, it should have been a red card.
Yes, it should have been a red card. But take that one incident away. Look at how many times he's rolling around and all the antics and the diving. I mean, it's embarrassing. This would have been a great World Cup, but he could spoil it.
I think he was. I don't think he was as bad today, actually, as he was against Switzerland. But he sets a precedent, doesn't he? The first game he rolls around, then the second game he doesn't. So he's forever wanting to, he's inviting the opposition to kick him all the time because he'll hold on to the ball a bit. I thought he was much better today. And you don't want his antics, as Stevie's just rightly said, to get in the way of his performance. Osorio's talking about is what he's done off the field today, or what he was, doing on the field, getting kicked around. When actually you should be talking about his goal and his assist, because they were the standout moments really to break the deadlock.
On a technicality, it was a red card.
Yeah.
I mean, but you can clearly see with the stamp, there's no weight behind it.
There's no mallet,
the heel's on the ground.
Yeah.
The quote from Osorio actually rolled on for a bit. We didn't have it on the screen, where he says, we controlled the game at that point. I mean, see stuff like that. It's just utter nonsense. Because they had a good 20 minutes, as Stevie said.
Yeah.
But in the second half, it was wave after wave of attack, because they play a high-tempo game. They have done for, 4 games now, and they're tired. And Willian was just running at them for fun. So, it's just nonsense from the coach. And as for Neymar, I mean, we got all these people coming on here, giving you stats and all that, Neymar haters on social media. Well, not Neymar haters. You just get frustrated watching the guy.
Yeah.
There's so much talent rolling about like a big kid on the ground.
He is brilliant, yet he rolls around like nobody else, does he? No. You cannot pick or think of any other superstar footballer in the top 10 players in the world who do what he does. Mbappe doesn't, Cavani doesn't, Ronaldo, Messi. They get kicked, yes, they get up, they get on with it, they might complain a bit, but they don't roll around and create that much havoc as he does.
Boys, a word on Neymar?
Yeah, there is a lot of Neymar hate between the players, between Juan Carlos Osorio. There were words exchanged before the game. Neymar, after, said they spoke a lot. Now they're going home, referring to Mexico. We talked about the previous history between these players, between last games. They remember each other. They don't like each other. Should have been a red card, yes. The diving was embarrassing, though.
Look, let me just say this. It had nothing to do with Mexico losing. But all the words that I used about Neymar in the stadium probably aren't fit for TV.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I know you're heading back now that Mexico are out. Been wonderful to have you, boys. It's been entertaining, that is for sure. Let's talk about Brazil, shall we? I don't feel we've given them much love. This is a team that are just working their way through the gears and looking better with every game, yeah?
Yeah, going to miss Casemiro, I believe. Not a bad replacement if it is Fernandinho. Might find himself unlucky not to be playing a bit more, but Paulinho is preferred in there because he gets forward. I still think, as a performance, Neymar got the goal, but I still think, again, he was outshone. Previously, it's been by Coutinho. I think he was outshone by Willian today.
That's right, wasn't he?
You scratch your head and think, why was he on the bench so many times for Chelsea last year? A guy who's so direct, so quick, tough to play against. And, yeah, that game against Belgium is going to be terrific.
And a clean sheet as well.
Yeah, I was impressed with him defensively. no question. I don't remember Alisson having to make a save. And Mexico are as good on the break as any team in this competition. And they snuffed it out. Wagner at the start had a bit of a problem, but then Silva just came out and helped them out. So, yes, we can talk all day about how great they are going forward, but I thought defensively they were absolutely. You
sometimes think about Marcelo not playing and Felipe Luis coming in at left back, and he doesn't want to get forward as much, and that's now a good thing, isn't it? Because he actually doesn't. Yeah. If you leave that three that we've mentioned, Willian, Coutinho, Neymar, and whoever, Paulinho driving forward, I thought every time Mexico tried to counter-attack them, they had 6 bodies back, 2 walls. Even when they were clearing corners, they were all out. They played Mexico offside on the second ball in a number of times. They look really organised for the first time in a long time. Yes, I think they are susceptible at sitting in the right-back area with Wagner. He doesn't look as good as, you know, a Danilo or anyone like that. But I just thought that block right in the middle of the pitch, they look really, really strong today.
And what they did I notice in the second half quite a few times was, if they can do it, is when Mexico did have the ball, they dropped Jesus back into the left-hand side, and Neymar just sort of kept himself through the middle, because the young fella's going to come back and put a shift in a little bit more, and then when on the break, he's quick, and you've got Neymar up there. So when they could switch those two defensively, that's what they did.
Belgium through to the quarter-finals, just as we would have expected. Not quite, though, in the manner that we thought in which it was going to happen. Coming from behind to beat Japan by 3-2. What a game, Craig.
Another great game.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, we had the big bat out, ready to smash Belgium, ready to hammer them, particularly for the defending, but he made substitutions. He had to make them, change the shape, change the personnel, and they scored 3 great goals. But you've got to feel a bit for Japan how it all panned out in the end.
I agree. I think they were slightly fortunate to get back into the goal with the Tongan header. Yep. I think we all agree that he didn't mean to. He was just going to head it back into the danger area, but it's come off the side of his head and gone into the goal. And he was the one person who needed them to get back in the game, because he was at fault for the first goal, where he was too relaxed, too arrogant, that he was just going to clean up easily. I thought the goalkeeper was at fault, but they got away with it, and they showed the resilience, they showed the mental capacity, the mental strength to get back into the game, utilise the players they've got, stick one in the box for Fellaini. They are a big team, and I think I feel sorry for Japan, but you know, the best team as a whole, I think, have gone through.
It's slightly naive from Japan putting so many players forward at the end for that corner.
Yeah, I mean, you could point the finger at Japan for doing that. If you want to be positive about Belgium, you can say that from 2 goals down, they showed the strength of character to come through and win. But the truth is, it all started with just a bit of luck and a fluke, which is not what you expect from this Belgian side. So the positive is they came back. Yep. Let's be honest. If they play like this against a real team, they ain't getting any further.
Next up then for Belgium is a real team. Brazil, the quarter-final is on Friday. We'll be looking back at Brazil's victory over Mexico, plus, of course, discussing in more detail this win for Belgium on ESPN FC, which will be available later today, exclusively on ESPN+.
England prepare to face Colombia in the last 16 game here in Moscow at the Spartak Arena. And Mark, Gareth Southgate's described this as the biggest game in 10 years for England, obviously because it's been that long since England won a knockout game.
It's been longer than 10 years, it's been 12 years, Ecuador in Germany 2006, so it is a big game, there's a huge amount riding on it, but I think that, you know, Colombia is a tougher game than Japan would have been if it had been Japan, but I still think England can win this game. Colombia's record in major tournaments isn't great, and if England win, the path to the final really opens up, and it's a remarkable thing considering 2 years ago they came up from Euro 2016 as absolute no-hopers.
It's a tough gamble, isn't it? Because you're right, it does put England on the easier side of the bracket, but Colombia's going to be a tough game. I wonder where you stand then on the whole resting the players for that Belgium game. 8 changes, and some people are saying lack of momentum. Perhaps Harry Kane would want to have continued his scoring run?
I just think that's a lot of rubbish. I mean, last Sunday was when they played Panama, so it's only 7-8 days, and these players need a rest, and I think we saw James Rodriguez get injured in Colombia's game, so England have got a fresh group of players hungry to prove what they can do in this World Cup. I think, you know, if they'd have won that game against Belgium, they'd have faced Japan and possibly Brazil. This is a much better route, and I think Southgate was justified.
On James Rodriguez, the eve of the tournament, he has not trained. how much of a boost is that? I know they have other great players as well. Falcao, of course, he's already got off the mark in terms of scoring, but how much easier will it be without James?
You want to play teams without their best players, and he's their best player. I mean, he was a star of the World Cup in Brazil. He plays for Bayern Munich. He's been at Real Madrid. He's a fantastic player. He might not be fully fit, but just a minute of skill from him can turn the game. So if he's not playing, it's great for England.
We've got to talk about the dreaded penalties because we've already seen plenty of penalty shootouts. Gareth Southgate was actually asked about whether he would be confident for Ashley Young to take a penalty, and he said that he would be. How do you think England will be getting on? They say they've been practicing penalties for quite some time.
This is the nightmare scenario, isn't it? If England get penalties, I just don't have any confidence because I just think they're scarred. I mean, I'm scarred.
Even under Gareth Southgate, he's made a really big point of this because he has missed a penalty himself. He knows what it's like.
If you're a player, you look at Gareth Southgate and you see the first image you think of is Gareth Southgate being consoled by Terry Venables after Euro 96. England are scarred by penalties, and until they win one, it's going to be the same. Now, I'd rather it didn't go to penalties. I hope it doesn't, but who knows? And if it does, then we'll see.
Who do you think is the strongest side? Don't go with your heart. I want a rational, go with your head answer here.
I think England are a better team. I think Colombia have got better individuals, but James and Falcao. But I still think that England, they're ranked higher than Colombia in the world rankings. I think England are a better team. So great at set pieces. They've had a good World Cup so far. England, for me, can win this game. Just have some confidence.
Now, just finally, there's a lot of chatter about it's coming home. England can go all the way. Obviously, one game at a time. But how confident are you that England could really do something at this tournament?
If they lose tomorrow night, on Tuesday night, then it's wins against Tunisia and Panama, bad World Cup. If they win tomorrow night, like on Tuesday night, it's a great World Cup. And I think if they win, get to the quarter-final, momentum can take them to the final, where they'll probably lose to Brazil.
Ever the optimist. No, it certainly sounds intriguing. But game by game, we've got to get past for Colombia first. Thanks. All the very latest, keep it right here at ESPN.
And welcome once again as we do another ESPN FC Facebook Live. Joining me is Brian McBride, his first Facebook Live. Brian,
Second.
You did one without me.
I did, but that was a long time ago. It was with Max.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, that's tough to live up to. Anyways, but Brazil did live up to their expectations. They are through to the quarterfinals of this World Cup following a 2-0 win over Mexico. Best believe I saw a lot of U.S. fans tweeting 2-0, which is probably throwing salt in the wounds, but still a very spirited performance from Mexico, a very spirited run overall. But let's start off with Brazil because they had been labeled as favorites to win this World Cup, one of the favorites at least to win this World Cup, and there were always a question mark. So we saw what happened to Germany. We've seen what happened to Spain.
Sure.
Brazil now, how are they looking for you? How do you feel they handled this game?
Yeah, they're looking real good. Nothing's changed that. I think that they handled this game pretty well. I think Mexico put them under pressure a lot more than they thought in the first 15 minutes of that match.
Which was risky.
It was very risky. But Mexico, they took a ton of risks throughout. If you look at every single free kick and corner kick, they just went man-to-man and left. They were hoping what they were trying to do is they were trying to catch Brazil on a counter. Weren't able to do that, of course, but I was surprised that Brazil didn't try and float a few balls, right around the penalty spot and just say, I'm going to go and win it. And but going back to how Mexico played and how Brazil looked under that pressure, they looked pretty calm. And there wasn't many times when you saw them just, kicking it long. I was surprised plenty of times they were passing it through their own penalty area with that pressure. So I think you saw Brazil very comfortable throughout. There was times when Mexico was actually able to put some pressure on it and get a half opportunity, a shot from distance. But overall, Brazil looked really well.
Would you say Brazil are peaking just at the right time of the tournament?
That's tough to say because there hasn't been really a lot of question marks asked of Brazil to this point. 4 shots on goal? Allison saves 3 of them, so only 1 goal against. I still think there's still teams out there that are going to provide a little bit more of a competition and really be able to break down Brazil a little bit better than Mexico. And I'm not saying Mexico didn't, throw every caution to the wind. They did. But, you look at Belgium, you look at a possibility of France. Those teams, I think, have a little bit more going forward than what Mexico has as a group.
All right, well, guys, of course, since this is Facebook Live and we are taking all of your questions don't be shy. Send in those questions. Brian is here. Put him under some pressure. He loves to tackle all of these questions. I know I have asked them also on Twitter. And Brian, as you can imagine, with how Brazil is going, and like you said, there's not much to criticize them on, but no team is perfect, so we'll probably try to bring up some of the stuff you would have liked to see them do better, but some are already looking ahead because there is another game that has to be played today, and that is Belgium-Japan. And again, on paper, it looks like we can easily, with our eyes closed, say Belgium, but we know how this World Cup has been going, but at least today seems to be going as many would have predicted. So say Belgium do get through, Brian. What would you like to see Brazil do or change in order to come up against them? Do you think they will be that test that you've talked about that will pressure them more than, say, Mexico or some of the others in the group did?
Yeah, I think Belgium has a few more attacking options. They've got the physicality with Lukaku. Eden Hazard can run at players with the ball at their feet. And I thought Mexico did a pretty good job of that. I thought Carlos Vela played very well. When he switched from left to right, he didn't have as much influence. Certainly had more of the ball, but he wasn't really getting to positions near the end of the field to be able to put balls in the penalty area. And I think Belgium has the wherewithal to keep possession a little bit more. But I also don't see Belgium pressing the way Mexico pressed Brazil. So maybe you have a little bit more space to play into and run into.
All right, well, we're going to try and not put, the carriage in front of the horse. Yeah. So we still have to let Belgium play. But let's take some more questions coming in about Brazil. Bob wants to know, do you think Brazil can win it all without Marcelo? Marcelo, of course, sitting his whole time on the bench today. But when you look at who Brazil have coming off the bench, you would think that they could risk that, but could they?
Yeah, listen, Felipe Luis is an excellent left back himself, but certainly you don't get as much going forward without Marcelo. That was a surprise to me, and when they said it was back spasms, usually back spasms caused by, your off alignment in your back or your hips are, and you have 5 days to fix that. To me, I think that they were probably just holding him out as a precaution. I would imagine if it is back spasms and it's not something else, that he'd be back for them.
I know. I mean,
that would be
one
my
person you'd like to have. It's definitely Marcelo. Ritesh wants to know, who was your best player today? I know earlier on in one of our hits you mentioned Willian. Was he your standout player today?
He was. He was for sure. And it had to do in the first half more with breaking that pressure. As soon as he was able to break that pressure a little bit, you saw an extra midfielder had to come over and support, and that's when you saw Coutinho was able to drift off of Marquez. Eventually, that's why you see Marquez be substituted, because it was just happening too much after that 25th minute period. I think Willian was not only good in that period, but any time he needed to take a player on, he made sure that he put a defender on his heels. He did a great job of overlapping Neymar, of course, back heels him on the first goal and plays a lovely ball across for Neymar to tap in. So for me, Willian was by far and away their best player.
All right, so now I have to segue into this because there's a lot of questions coming in about a certain man, Neymar. Both good and bad. Here we go with both of them. Now, there is at least one productive question before we get to the whole hilarious ones, Brian. So let me start with this. Ansel thinks that this was Neymar's best game at the World Cup. Do you think it was?
I think...
Putting his acting skills aside, we'll get to that in a bit.
I don't think it was far and away his best game. Certainly he had a goal and an assist. And that assist really, you can't really credit it as an assist because Ochoa makes a great save. That actually is going in the far corner. He's trying to toe poke it. Ochoa makes a great save, and of course, you get Firmino just there with the best goal as a forward you can ever ask for, because you just see everything. You're just tapping it in, and the easiest goal you can ask for too. So I think it's questionably his best game, but certainly when you see the antics as you're going to get to it, we don't need that. You just don't need
That's what I was going to get to there, because of course, I mean, CJ wants to know, what do you think of Neymar's acting skills? I have somebody else asking, do you think Neymar can possibly win the Best Actor of the World Cup award? Because surprisingly enough, now I love Neymar, and I love Brazil. I've picked them to win it all. However, a lot of people believe that he was a victim in this case. You'd be surprised the amount of people that were ready to defend him, and props to them, of course. There's two sides to every story. That little, we don't want to call it a stamp, but the step on by Miguel Layún. Some said Miguel Layún knew what he was doing.
Of course he did.
Or some said, it was harmless. How did you see it?
Well, first of all, of course, Layún knew what he was doing. Secondly, it wasn't a stomp. And that's why I don't think that's
why he didn't get carded.
Inevitably, that's why he didn't get carded. We were up watching the game, and I was saying, at least 2 to 3 times a game, I would have my toes stepped on a lot on purpose. A lot worse than that was. It was more a, to me, it was more a, hey, I'm here, just to let you know. I'll give you a little step on, not a stamp. There wasn't a lot of pressure. He picked the ball up. In slow motion, it looked a little bit worse than it was. But, no, I mean, to act like that, first of all, to Best Actor award, no. Because no one bought it. I mean, you've got to...
It's becoming like The Boy Who Cried Wolf.
You've got to get rewarded for it.
So he's playing with danger here because one day he could genuinely be taken down or fouled, and the referee might say, no, play on, because been here before.
Well, if you look at it, it happened, there was a little bit, probably 10, 15 minutes later, Neymar gets a foul called for him, and then gets up, gets the ball, and Guardado is a little bit late to getting there, but gets the ball. Neymar jumps up, but at the same time, I forget the second player comes in and actually gets him. And it should have been a foul, but because of all the acting, the ref didn't think, and so, of course, he didn't get that foul because Guardado got the ball. The second player coming in didn't. But, yeah, referees see it. If you continually try and con a referee, you are inevitably going to start not getting things called that are fouls for you.
All right, well, of course, Neymar and Brazil are still very much into this World Cup. We've gone 8 minutes now in our what should be 10-minute Facebook Live. So let's talk about Mexico because they, of course, are bowing out of the tournament now. And still, I think, plenty to be proud of, Brad. And your biggest takeaways from Mexico for this tournament before we get into the whole Juan Carlos Osorio, will he stay or go?
Yeah, I think it was a good World Cup. And, there's been a lot of people that have brought up the fact that the U.S. aren't there. And the fact that, the run and the ability to get into the knockout stage for that many times in a row is exceptional. Now, when you go to this World Cup, I think against Sweden, they let themselves down. Didn't necessarily have their best game throughout. Tactically got it a little bit wrong. Today, I think it was the opposite. You look at the amount of pressure they were able to put on Brazil in that first 15, 20-minute period. And really the lack of fear to go at Brazil, knowing that, if you...
It's very Mexican.
Yeah, well, and they do it, this is back to old school. I mean, when we would play Mexico, they would say, hey, he's marking you, this one's marking there, and they'd spread the field out whether you had the ball or you didn't have the ball, and it made it that much more difficult, especially at altitude in Mexico City. But today, you have none of those factors. You've got a Brazilian team that's very comfortable playing under pressure, which you saw, but still gave them fits. Mexico gave Brazil fits in that first 15, 20-minute period. They just weren't able to get that goal. And if they got the goal, it might be a different story. And again, there's no woulda, coulda, shouldas. But, I think coming out of this game, they have no reason to look back and say, we played poorly, or this wasn't because the other team was better, because Brazil was better. And, you look at Memo Ochoa, he had an excellent tournament and a really good game today.
All right, well, of course, we know we'll get into the whole Juan Carlos Osorio debate, whether he'll stay or go on our show when we have Sebi and Herc on ESPN FC later on. But I do have an interesting question here now, because many do believe that Osorio might leave Mexico now because he's just tired of all the stress. He knows that he definitely has put in a good performance as coach. So Anonymous wants to know, but their screen name is Revolucion722. They want to know, Brian, what do you think? Osorio to the U.S. men's team, please? Do you think that's a fair shout?
Listen, I think if you add everything up, it's not impossible. He's coached in MLS. He's done very well in MLS. At the same time, he has experience now coaching a national team in a very high-pressure situation. But, the good thing is we've got Ernie Stewart now making those decisions, and he'll make sure he uncovers, every option. If there is an American coach that's an option that he feels is a right fit, I'd prefer to sort of keep that that continuity and that sort of history of a U.S. coach understanding what the U.S. national team means and is. That's not to say that the better option isn't an American. It's just I'd like to say that there are some good options there.
All right, perfect. Well, all good things must come to an end, like our Facebook Live. I'm pretty sure we've gone over 10 minutes, but it's been quite exciting now. Thank you so much to Brian McBride. Thanks to all of you guys for all of your questions. Remember, we'll have more talk about the World Cup. Just join the show later on ESPN FC on ESPN+. Well, it looks like finally at least one prediction has gone our way. Brian McBride is here with me for this one. Brazil marched through to the quarterfinals, so the favorites' curse has not affected the Seleção yet. Unfortunately, for all the spirited Mexican fans, it comes at the expense of El Tri. They have crashed out again, yet again, Brian, in the round of 16. So let's start off with Brazil. What did you make of their performance today?
I thought it was a pretty good performance. I think, on the other hand, too, I thought Mexico played well. They really challenged them. Instead of sitting back, Mexico said, you know what, we're just going to play you man-to-man. A very gutsy decision. It took a little while for Brazil to break the pressure. And for that point, I think Mexico needed to get an early goal and really reward them for putting Brazil under a little bit of pressure. But you could see after about 25 minutes, Brazil realized it. I thought Willian was excellent throughout the match. Just that change of pace, he was able to break lines. And when Mexico is playing you man-to-man, you need players to be able to break other individuals down. And not only that, beating his first, he drew other players in, and it just created a whole bunch of opportunities for Brazil.
And let's talk about Mexico now just quickly. What can they take from this World Cup? Because they really were against it just going into it, just problems on and off the field. We knew all of the criticisms surrounding Juan Carlos Osorio, but they managed to string together some pretty brilliant performances, I guess, save for that one against Sweden. So what can they take from this? And do you think it's enough for Osorio to keep his job?
You know, that I don't know. I know he was under a lot of pressure since he signed for Mexico. And surprisingly enough, even though the results were excellent for him, the fact that there's been so much scrutiny and concern over his decision-making, I'd be hard-pressed to say that he's going to be kept on. I think he's done an excellent job. You could see just tactically, he's changed so many different things at different times for Mexico, and Mexico is able to adapt and make those changes, which shows that you get not only a coach that understands the opponent they're going against, but understands their players and able to get across those ideas, because that's a special trait, and a lot of coaches can't do that near as well. And you see a lot of teams that have exceptionally talented teams, i.e. Argentina, that don't follow through with a game plan, and they're not near as organized. I thought Mexico, although spread out because that's the way they wanted to play, I thought it was effective, and unfortunately, as I said before, they weren't able to get that early goal.
All right, thanks so much to Brian McBride. So well done to Brazil. They march on to the quarterfinals of this World Cup, and still very well done to Mexico for entertaining us. Definitely, they proved a lot of haters wrong, I would like to say. We'll continue looking back at this game and all the action from the World Cup today on ESPN FC on ESPN+.